Bible John is the nickname of a serial killer who is believed to have murdered 3 young women after meeting them at the Barrowland Ballroom in Glasgow, Scotland, between 1968 and 1969. Wikipedia link here. It's been theorized that these murders were committed by Peter Tobin, who was later convicted of the murders of Angela Gluck, Vicky Hamilton and Dinah McNichol, although this has never been proven. On February 23, 1968, the naked body of 25-year-old nurse Patricia Docker was found by a man on his way to work in a lane behind Carmichael Place, Glasgow. The lane was only yards from her home in Langside Place. She had been raped and strangled. The previous night, she had told her parents that she was going out dancing at a nearby club, the Majestic Ballroom in Hope Street, Glasgow. Patricia had, in fact, gone to the Barrowland Ballroom for the over-25s night. It transpired that at some point during the night, Docker left the Majestic and ended up at the Barrowlands, where it is thought she met her killer. It was several days after her murder that the police found out that she had actually gone to the Barrowlands. Focusing their investigation on the Majestic cost the police valuable time. Pat's handbag and clothes were missing, and despite months of investigation, neither were ever found. On August 15, 1969, mother of 3, Jemima MacDonald, 32, also went for a night out at the Barrowland Ballroom. The next day, Jemima's sister Margaret heard rumors in the area that young children were seen leaving an old tenement building in McKeith Street talking about the body. By the Monday morning, Margaret was so concerned that she herself, fearing the worst, went to the old building where she found Jemima's battered body. She had been strangled, raped and beaten to death. Unlike Patricia Docker, Jemima was fully clothed when her body was found. Witnesses said that they had seen her leaving the club at midnight with a tall, slim young man with red hair. Police conducted door-to-door inquiries at the time and found a woman who remembered hearing screams coming from the same building in McKeith Street, although she could not vouch for the time. Police considered the information of little use and the investigation was later wound down. On October 31, 1969, 29-year-old Helen Puddock was found murdered in Earl Street in Scottstown. She had also been to the Barrowland Ballroom on the night she was murdered. She had gone there with her sister, Jean, and had met 2 men called John. One said he was from Castlemilk while the other did not disclose where he was from. After being in their company for well over an hour, they left to head home. Castlemilk John walked to George Square to get a bus, while Helen, Jean and the killer hailed a taxi. They set off from Glasgow Cross and made a westward journey heading to Knightswood where Jean lived. It was during this journey that most of the crucial information about the killer became apparent. More significant were the conversations in the taxi that would later be used to create a psychological profile of the killer. Jean told detectives that he was a well-spoken man who quoted from the Bible. It was this information that led to the killer being given the moniker Bible John by the media. After dropping off Jean at Kingswood, the taxi then continued to Earl Street in Stockton where Helen lived. The next morning, Helen's battered body was found in the back garden of her flat in Earl Street. She had been raped and strangled. The contents of her handbag had been scattered nearby, but the actual bag was missing. It has been suggested that the killer took the bag as a trophy. Grass stains on Helen's feet indicated that there had been a struggle in which Helen probably tried to escape her killer. She also had a deep bite mark on her leg. Some similarities between the 3 victims. All had spent the last night of their lives at the Barrowland Ballroom. All 3 were strangled with their own nylons. Each body was left in very close proximity to the victim's home. The handbags of all 3 were taken after the murder, possibly as souvenirs. All 3 victims were menstruating. All 3 were seen leaving the Barrowland with a man of similar description, which the CID distributed to newspapers after Helen's murder. 25 to 30 years old. Medium build, about 6 feet tall. Short light reddish hair and blue-gray eyes. One tooth in upper right of mouth overlaps another tooth. Military-style wristwatch band. Although the New York Daily News stated that a lead investigator in the case had dismissed Bible John as a media creation and further claimed that the police never really thought there was one man who killed 3 times, what is known of the investigation seems to strongly indicate that after Helen's murder, the Glasgow police did believe in some connection between the 3 crimes. In fact, they initiated a multifaceted investigation that was arguably the largest the city had ever seen. One thing I always found strange about this case is that all 3 of the victims were menstruating at the time of their murders. It could just be a coincidence, but it seems as if the murders were in some way related to menstruation cycles. In the murder of Helen Puddock, her sanitary pad had been placed under her left arm, indicating that it had some significance to the killer. Growing up in Glasgow, this case always fascinated me, and I'm surprised that after over 40 years later it still hasn't been solved. I'm not entirely convinced that it was Tobin who committed the murders. Several detectives and victim families are also not convinced.
It may be worth noting Tobin has been connected to at least another 48 victims across the UK, and the Bible John murders stopped after Tobin left Glasgow. Although I am also skeptical that Tobin is Bible John, as he is only 5'8" and witness reports have put John at 6 feet. Witness statements match the way Tobin spoke to Dinah McNichol to the way Bible John spoke to Helen Puttock, saying things such as he didn't support Rangers or Celtic, bragging about his cousin hitting a hole in one, etc. I find both cases very interesting and think if anyone will ever be charged with the Bible John murders, it will be Peter Tobin. I think it's probably a different killer, but it's hard to say with any certainty. The differing descriptions are difficult to look past, but the similarities in Mo are also pretty compelling. I think it's tempting to ascribe Bible John's crimes to Tobin because he's in custody, and the idea that the killer is potentially still out there, living as a free man amongst the people of Glasgow, is an unpleasant one. Am I right in thinking that Castlemaine John has never come forward? Because that is interesting, if so, because the implication I keep seeing is that the two men might have known each other. It's exceedingly unlikely, I know, but has anyone raised the possibility that Bible John might be more than one person working together, i.e. team killers? 2 or 3 men, cooperating to commit rape and murder, using their most erudite, tall, handsome member, the Bible quoter, as the pickup artist, and their most violent, short-arsed member, Tobin, as the disposal man, could potentially explain away the disparities in both the Tobin and non-Tobin theories. It's a totally ludicrous theory, but I'm just throwing it out there. A friend of my family's brother was taken into questioning on the suspicion of being Bible John. He looked like the sketch and was a really weird guy, always quoting the Bible and being very secretive. He'd go alone to the dances in the Barrowlands. They found blood in the boot of his car, but once tested, it had been his dog's blood from when he hurt his paw. I think it's extremely unlikely we'll ever know for certainty, although Tobin is certainly the most intriguing suspect.
So, what's your theory on what happened? Post it in the comments below. Thank you for listening. You can find the original post in r/unresolved mysteries through the link in the description box below. I like being able to listen to posts when I'm busy doing something else and can't read them. So I made this video for anyone who wants to listen to their Reddit posts. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and don't forget to hit the subscribe button below to get more puzzling mysteries.